Everyone thinks they know when it's the right time to retire. That one day it'll just click, the numbers will line up, your fear will just melt away, and you'll feel ready. But here's the truth most people don't realize until it's too late. By the time retirement finally feels safe, you may have waited too long. That's why today we are going to talk about the hidden costs of delaying retirement too long. Because for many people, they don't have a careful plan for their retirement. They can easily end up trading some of their healthiest and most capable years for a little more financial security and certainty. And they're going to lose the one thing that they cannot get back: time. Retirement isn't just about money. And in today's society, there's so much fear in the news that may scare you into trying to work a little longer for a little more security. But what if the real thing that you should be afraid of missing out on is those good years? It's about maximizing the years when you can actually enjoy your life. And age 60 may be one of the most overlooked opportunities to do that, which is why today you'll learn why waiting until feeling emotionally ready and comfortable could be dangerously misleading if you don't have a framework to determine what the facts are. I'm Joe Bogan. I'm a certified financial planner who's helped hundreds of people with retirement planning consultations. And one of the key things that we focus on quite a bit is avoiding the trap of waiting too long. And today I'll show you some of our thoughts on how to avoid it. So let's get into it. As a financial planner, I see most people already know that they should be saving. Even if they're not on track, at least people, if they're not on track, they know they need to save a little bit more to get where they want to be. But the one thing that people often don't have a lot of insight into, and one of the biggest mistakes that I see around retirement, it's not that they're making a bad investment or a bad spending habit or even undershaving. It's waiting too long and not really knowing when is enough. Waiting until the numbers look perfect, waiting until the market feels less risky, waiting for some magical feeling of certainty. But here's the problem: that feeling almost never comes. And while people wait, something else happens. Silently and irreversibly, time slips away. They don't realize it, but they are trading their healthiest and most active years of their retirement for a little more accumulation, even though they are already in a strong enough position. And by the time they finally feel safe, they've lost what they were working so hard for in the first place: the freedom to enjoy their life without the pressure and stress of the workday. This is the retirement trap, the myth that more time working equals more safety. When in reality, the longer you wait, the more likely you are to possibly miss out, not just financially, but emotionally, physically, and mentally. In fact, AARP reports that in your 60s, you're likely to see accelerated decline in health across immune function, cardiovascular resilience, muscle mass, all factors that directly affect your quality of life and your length of life. So as you're heading into your 60s, it may be easier to think you can retire a lot later. But the fact is, you may be aging a lot faster and face different health risks and challenges in the next 10 years that you didn't have in the last 10 years. And that's exactly why we need to break down our framework today. So why do smart people keep falling into this trap? When I first speak with people, I often ask the same questions over and over again. And one of the common ones is, do you know exactly how much is enough for you to retire comfortably and stay retired? The most common response I get when I ask this question is that I can always have more money. There is no enough. But this is just not correct, because if money doesn't cost you anything and it's free, you could always have more. Sure, but that is a fallacy. There is no free lunch. For most of us, getting more will cost you your healthy time that could be used living your life on your own terms in meaningful ways. What causes this mindset? It comes down to a couple of core beliefs deeply ingrained into how we think about retirement, but can quietly lead us away from the very life we are working so hard to create. These beliefs don't just delay your retirement, they distort your sense of readiness or your financial confidence and your personal freedom. And the most dangerous part, they don't always feel wrong in the moment until it's too late. And in fact, the Wall Street Journal recently reported that quite frequently people on their deathbed reported a regret of working too much, and very few people reported not working enough. So let's break down the beliefs. Belief one is I'll just work a few more years and I'll feel safer. This belief seems harmless, even responsible. But what it really does is it creates a moving finish line. The longer you work, the more your mind attaches to security and continuing to work and is afraid of leaving and breaking off from that paycheck. So instead of building confidence, you're actually building dependence, not on your money, but on your time. That's a race that no one wins because there is always going to be another goalpost, another risk to avoid, or another maybe just one more year. I've seen people say this year after year for 5 years consecutively, even with more than enough saved already, simply because they never felt 100% certain. And in that time, they lost travel opportunities, saw their health decline, and missed out on years they can't get back. As a quick side note, if you are watching this and you're thinking like, is this me? You may be unsure about whether delaying retirement another year would actually help or hurt your retirement plan. And that's why I created a completely free tool to get some feedback that's personalized to you on this. If you want personalized feedback, check out the link in the description to get a completely free 5-minute miniature financial review where you're going to get some free feedback on your scenario. Just real numbers, just real feedback on your goals, personalized to you. But let's keep going because the next solution here and the next belief is what surprises people the most. And that's the belief that you need to reach some magic number with your savings. There's a myth that you need 1 million or 2 million to retire comfortably. But here's the thing, your retirement success has nothing to do with these universal benchmarks that you often read in the news or on certain surveys. And it has everything to do with your personal lifestyle, your expenses, and your income strategy. I've worked with people who were all set on $500,000 per year, and others who with 1.5 million weren't even close to being on track. The problem is that the magic number creates this invisible pressure to keep saving long after maybe actually necessary. Instead of evaluating if they're ready, people just assume that they aren't because they haven't hit it some arbitrary target that they've read about or heard about from a neighbor, friend, brother. But if you're in your late 60s or 70s, the trade-offs can be quite steep. And looking at things critically can start to pay meaningful dividends. Health issues, family changes, or fatigue can crop up as you get later into retirement. You might still retire, but it's a different type of retirement if you retire too late. And it's not the one most people imagine when they're grinding away for just a few more years. So what do you do if the rules you've been told about some magic number, one more year mindset, the safety through delay type of mentality, what if these are actually holding you back? By your late 60s or 70s, the trade-offs can be quite steep. Health, family issues, family changes, fatigue. You might still retire at this point, but it could be a completely different retirement and not the one that you imagine when you're just grinding away for a few more years. One of the reasons that this belief is so dangerous is that it gives security and it replaces a need for some detailed, responsible, and well thought out financial planning. You always feel like you could save a little more and you don't need to do these critical thought planning exercises. Left to our own devices, we may feel this fear and anxiety about how risky retirement could be without a paycheck and default to clutching on your job for just a few more years. Clarity is the solution here, and it requires a totally different approach to base your decisions on to achieve this clarity based on facts and sound perspective. How do you know when it's actually the right time to retire? Not just financially, but emotionally and practically. For the clients I've worked with, the shift didn't come from saving more. It came from a completely different change in perspective. They stopped asking, do I have enough? And they started asking, what does my ideal lifestyle look like if I stop working? And is that possibly within reach given my current resources? We sort of think about that, it really can change everything. And the answer is you could be much closer than you think. When in reality, we count the costs of those extra years, we often find that what people want isn't a bigger account balance. It's the confidence and the security to stop working and know that their life won't completely fall apart. But most people don't get that confidence in a number. They get it from clarity about what they'll spend, clarity about what income they can count on, and clarity about whether their retirement assets can realistically support that life for the potentially many decades ahead. That's the idea behind something I call the lifestyle first retirement planning framework. Instead of saving towards someone else's magic number, you start with your life. What do you want it to look like? And then work backwards from that figure. The result, a retirement timeline that's personal, that's actionable, and in many cases, sooner than you might have expected. So the next question is, how does the lifestyle first retirement framework actually work? Well, the first thing that you need to do is you need to start mapping out your monthly spending need, not for future projections, but real numbers based on your current and expected lifestyle changes in retirement. Then we look at the reliable income sources that you have. Things like Social Security, pensions, annuities, whatever gap that's there between your spending needs and your sources, we need to figure out the savings needed to cover that gap. Suddenly, retirement isn't about just hitting an arbitrary number like 1 million or 2 million. And why does this work? It removes the guesswork. It shifts a decision from fear-based delays to fact-based and proactive planning. And the more detailed, the better. You may use the 4% rule in this process to generate a projected portfolio size that you need, and that can be a helpful start, but there are some real issues with using these one-size-fits-all rules, so a more detailed and comprehensive plan can address critical decisions that may have impact, like portfolio allocation choices, tax planning opportunities, or Social Security maximization, and so forth. But here's the key. Don't get caught up on making a perfect plan right out the gate. Just act, make a first draft, and then you can improve that plan over time and tap into different resources as you learn. Maybe you even reach out to us or some other financial planner to get some feedback on your scenario. The surprising benefits that I found in meeting with clients when we run these scenarios can be quite significant. When we do early retirement planning, it's quite common that we will discover significant healthcare subsidies or even tax planning opportunities that they would never have had if they had retired later. These planning opportunities can help their success quite significantly. So don't delay. Get started and start to build a framework to help you get clarity-based confidence. And the impact here, you're going to stop wondering, am I behind? And you're going to start asking, am I already ready? That's a far more empowering place to make decisions from. The truth is, most people don't retire too early. They retire too late, and they end up regretting it. So if you're around 60 and you're wondering whether it's time, don't ask if the market's right. Ask if your life is right. And if you want help figuring that out, I want you to click the link below and fill out the questionnaire to get a completely free mini retirement planning review where we will walk through your income, your savings, your expected expenses, and give you some feedback on whether or not you're on track to retire sooner than you think. My name's Joe Bogan. Thanks for watching. And remember, retirement isn't a reward for just working an extra few years longer. It's a result of getting clear on what matters most and what your resources are capable of doing for you.